President complained again tonight about mail-in voting, as he's done most days the last couple of weeks. In the past, he's claimed fraud, ballot harvesting, you name it, but as we pointed out before, there's no evidence of widespread voter fraud in this country. In fact, at least 5 states have been doing it for years. Colorado is one of them. CNN's Lucy Kavanaugh shows us what it looks like and separates reality from myth.
This machine here processes 20,000 ballots an hour. It's really loud. We would not be able to be talking this closely right now to it.
George Stern is an elections administrator for Jefferson, Colorado's 4th largest county, located in the western suburbs of Denver.
So everything here is out in the open.
Everything's out in the open.
He's invited the president and CNN to tour the county's mail ballot processing facility. His message?
There's no massive fraud, that our elections are secure as much as they are accessible.
All registered Colorado voters automatically receive a ballot in the mail. You can still vote in person, but an overwhelming majority of ballots, including 99.3% in this year's state primary, have consistently been returned by mail or ballot drop box.
Everyone knows mail-in ballots are a disaster.
This week, the president sued Nevada to contest the expansion of mail-in voting, tweeting in July, mail-in ballots will lead to massive electoral fraud and a rigged 2020 election.
We've been doing universal vote by mail in Colorado for 7 years, and we can say with certainty that that is not the case.
That's because of what Stern says is a rigorous system of checks and balances. For a mail-in ballot to be counted, the envelope must be signed. A bipartisan team of election judges, trained by FBI handwriting analysts, then compares the envelope signature to those stored on file.
If there isn't a signature that matches, that's getting pushed off to the side, and it's going to be investigated by the district attorney's office.
Data from the Conservative Heritage Foundation shows 9 instances of voter fraud out of millions of ballots cast since Colorado began voting by mail in 2013.
9's too many, right? We want that number 0. But that's 9 out of 16 million. That's literally less than 1 in a million.
In June, the president falsely claimed that millions of mail-in ballots will be printed by foreign countries and others. But Colorado election officials say that's also not a concern. An adversary would have to mimic everything perfectly, from a signature on file to the ballot's size, style, paperweight, and even the envelope it's mailed in, all of which differ from county to county and change in each election cycle. Another bonus?
Everything is paper, right? When you have mail ballots, you've got paper ballots. And we've got a paper trail, and we store that paper trail for 2 years after the election. Our voting equipment, our voting machines, never connected to the internet. They never have been. They never will be. Our counting equipment, never connected to the internet.
Which helps prevent hacking.
It would be a total joke.
Another false claim by the president that mail-in voting benefits Democrats, tweeting Republicans should fight very hard when it comes to statewide mail-in voting. Tremendous potential for voter fraud, and for whatever reason, doesn't work out well for Republicans.
Tonight, we shook up the Senate.
In the 2014 general election, the first election after Colorado switched to mail-in voting, Republicans flipped a U.S. Senate seat, won a majority in the state Senate, gained seats in the state House, and won 3 of 4 statewide offices.
We've seen that there is no partisan advantage. We've seen record voter turnout from Democrats and Republicans and unaffiliated voters in our elections.
The president has also suggested that election results could be delayed for months.
We actually deliver most of our results on election night every time because of this vote-by-mail system.
So in some ways, the mail-in voting actually makes the process faster.
In Colorado, it unquestionably makes it faster.
How easy is it to fake a ballot from someone who's deceased?
So dead people cannot vote, and they do not vote in Colorado. We regularly update our voter registration list.
Somebody got a ballot for a dog.
But my dog walks to vote with me every single election, but he's yet to get a ballot or turn one in himself.
Lucy Kavanaugh, CNN, Golden, Colorado.
Alabama's Republican Secretary of State says there's only one kind of mail-in voting there, and it's safe and secure. John Merrill joins us now. Secretary Merrill, thanks so much for being with us. I'm wondering what you're hearing from Republican voters in Alabama, because we're hearing that there's concern among some because the president is saying one thing, and yet, you know, a lot of Republicans vote by mail-in.
Anderson, thank you for having me as your guest. And there are a number of people who have significant concerns in our state about universal vote by mail. Of course, in Alabama, we've had absentee vote by mail for many, many years, and we will continue that process. We know that that process is safe, secure, and has a high degree of integrity and credibility in our state.
So are voters, because, I mean, absentee voting versus mail-in voting. I heard voters are asking some, secretaries of state about is there one that works and there one that not. It seems like Alabama, there's one system.
Well, Anderson, our people are very comfortable with the system that we have. As I said, it's been in place for many, many years. And I think what's important is that each state needs to do what's best for each state. Now, I think there are a number of questions that need to be answered related to these two incidences, because some people do not understand the difference between universal voting by mail and absentee voting by mail. So if we could take just a second to make sure that people understand, in the instance with universal voting by mail, what that would mean in the state of Alabama is that all 3,627,079 registered voters in Alabama would receive a ballot mailed to their home, whether or not they requested it or not. Through the absentee voting by mail system that we have, the voter has to request an application. They can download that from alabamavotes.gov, or they could contact their local circuit clerk or absentee election manager, have an application mailed to them, then they complete the application, they submit it to the absentee election manager, the circuit clerk in most counties, then that individual processes the application, then they send them a ballot, and then they need to follow the directions and successfully return their ballot so it will be counted for the candidate of their choice. I also think there's a couple other things that need to be noted. A number of times people will ask me, how much does it cost to run an election in Alabama? And each segment of our election, Anderson, costs $5.5 million. The primary, the runoff, and the general election. So approximately $16.5 million. For one segment of a universal vote by mail effort, in our state, it would cost $18.5 million. So if you added those three segments up, it would almost be $60 million as opposed to the $16.5 million that it currently costs the state of Alabama.
Are you hearing voters concerned about voting in person because of COVID-19?
You know, Anderson, most of the people in our state still want to vote in person. All 1,980 polling sites in the state of Alabama will be open on Election Day, just like they were when we had our runoff on July the 14th. Our people are very comfortable in going to the polls, and yet we've made it easy for them to have that opportunity and know that we're taking all the precautions necessary to ensure a safe and healthy environment for them to go vote. Our poll workers are all assigned to wear masks. They've been provided with latex and non-latex gloves. Hand sanitizer is everywhere. Disinfectant spray and sanitized wipes are available to be used. Once our election was over on July the 14th, we provided enough resources for all of our polling places to be returned to their pre-election condition, sanitized and fully cleaned so that they would be able to do what they needed to do with that location after the election was over.
Secretary John Merrill, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.